Welcome to Bulletproof Veteran Podcast. Thank you for your service.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Bulletproof Veteran Podcast. I'm super excited today because we get to talk about the water. And if you've listened to past episodes of the show, it's a topic that we've talked about quite often, but we're going to tackle it a little bit different this time. We've talked about surfing. We've talked about saving coral reefs with Force Blue and Rudy Reyes and that kind of stuff. One More Wave. We donated money for a custom surfboard for a disabled veteran. So the water is kind of something that's near and dear to my heart. I think it's a place where you can find your center. You can really zero out your entire life when you're on the water, however that is, whether it's diving, surfing, boating, whatever. And we have two gentlemen on the show today that kind of exemplify that idea. We have Kilian Duclay and Sean Duclay. They are brothers right here from Long Island. And they created an organization called SailAhead, which provides the opportunity for veterans to get out on the water, enjoy sailing, the benefits of it, the therapy of it, and also really raise awareness for veteran suicide and PTS. So Sean, Kilian, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. So first and foremost, and I'm sure you've had to answer this question 1,000 times since you guys started this organization. You were 16 and 14 when you started SailAhead. That is pretty young. Now, I remember what I was doing when I was 16 and 14. I definitely was not starting a nonprofit. I'll definitely say that. But yeah, like, you know, when I was 16, I was worried about getting a car. When I was 14, I think I was trying out the first time for volleyball. Like, I wasn't thinking about a nonprofit. So if you don't mind, we'll start off with that. How did you guys come up with this idea to help veterans through sailing?
Yeah, well, I guess, like you, that originally wasn't the intention. We weren't thinking about nonprofits. We didn't even know that they existed per se. But we were young, as you said, and we saw on the news, on our local news station, they're doing a piece on veteran homelessness and veteran suicide. And at the time, the figure that they provided was at least 22 veterans were committing suicide daily. And we thought that that was absolutely absurd. And so being young and perhaps idealistic, we thought, we had this privilege of growing up sailing. And there was always sort of an extra spot, enough room on the boat to fill up for one more person. So we reached out to our local veteran service organization, and we took out the first veteran sailing. It was in the winter, actually, in Oyster Bay on a Hobie Cat 16-footer. And after our sail, we had a great time, good conversations, lots of jokes. But since it's a dinghy, we had to go in early because our guest, the veteran, his back was hurting too much. So we were kind of like, uh-oh, this is, that's a bad first impression. But when we got back to the beach, he actually started crying and he gave us a hug. So we started crying, not knowing why quite yet. But he said that he'd been going to therapy for 20 years and that moment was the best therapy he'd ever had. So we sort of, we just wanted to help, but we didn't quite realize how profound the potential to help was and just how deep the need was also. So from that point on, we made it our mission every weekend. We were in school, obviously, so every weekend we would take more veterans out. We tried to scale it a bit more. We had friends that had Hobie Cats, and we basically started that moment, I guess, was the catalyst from we just want to help to okay, there's obviously a significant need, and let's find a way to fill it. But we did not start with any grand ambitions or anything. It was a very organic growth.
But it grew fast because it caught on pretty quick. You guys gained some notoriety, like I said, especially at a young age. Mm-hmm. You guys started, like, you were on the news and stuff probably when you were like 16 promoting this at that point.
Yeah, it's true. And in 2015, we had our first event, what we call event, which is basically when we partner with a yacht club, and they provide sailors and boats, and we try and be the broker between these two communities, the veterans community and the sailing community. And the Centerport, it was with the Centerport Yacht Club in 2015, and they are our biggest partners. With them alone, over like 5 years of events, we've taken over 1,000 veterans just with them to the water, and they provide a barbecue at the end of it. But our mission is not just to, so there are three parts to our mission. The first is to use the water and the ocean as a therapeutic platform to heal the scars of war, most of which are invisible. The second is to spread PTS and veteran suicide awareness. And the third is to honor and remember our mates, which we'll talk about later.
Yes.
But so, healing can't be self-contained with the veterans community, because we live in a society where there are, more civilians than veterans, far more civilians than veterans. So our goal is also to, that's the reason why we want to spread awareness, is because we can't just have veteran organizations working with veterans to heal veterans, because there's a bigger picture here. So the more civilians we can get on board with helping veterans, the better, and the more appreciated they feel. And it's just like a positive feedback loop of good feelings. And so that's our goal with our events. But we also have different programs, as you mentioned in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, and it's so true. I mean, we've talked about it a lot with different guests and stuff, especially people like yourselves that, haven't served in the military, but try to involve the civilian community in veteran issues. Only, I think it's 1% of the United States actually serves currently, or, of the population has served. And the percentage of people that know somebody that serves or has served is steadily declined. You look at like World War II, 70% of people had a close contact, family member, neighbor that was serving in the military or had served in the military. Now it's below 10%. So if we don't have organizations like yours that bridge that gap between the civilian and the veteran, the understanding and the benefits of having a two-way conversation just disappear. So it's great that you guys are trying to do that and set out to do it in a very cool way. So Kilian, tell me a little bit about sailing. I've been a boater my whole life. Okay. Grew up, first boat was, I think a 19-foot Renken. Then we got like a 24 Sunrunner. Then we moved into the Sea Rays. The last boat that we had was, I think it was, a 36 Sea Ray. So the last boat that the boat, just lived on the water, but I've never sailed. Okay. So what's different for anybody out there that doesn't know anything about sailing?
Well, first of all, sailing is just better. No,
See, now I would turn around and call you guys like blow boaters. It's kind of almost the same thing with the military. You have to make fun of the other side or it doesn't work.
You have to. You have to. But no, I mean, there are definitely some similarities with powerboating. First of all, just being out on the water can be calming and soothing and therapeutic, just being out there. Sailing, I always say it's one of those things where growing up, if I was out on the water, I would just completely forget that math exam I just flunked. Like you're just out in the element, you're with your partner or your sailing buddy, and you just have to negotiate the wind and waves and bring it home. On one hand, it can be calming and soothing and therapeutic, but on the other hand, it can be intense and very sporty. It's sport. And with sailing in particular, it's a team sport. So, when you're racing other boats, you're on the boat together with your team. Sometimes you're 16 people on the boat racing to get across the finish line, and that's why sailing is so cool, because on power boats, you don't really get that much. And in the case of the military, you guys are trained as a team. You guys go out into the most remote places of the world. You're used to getting it, like you're trained to act calm and cool and calm under pressure, under chaos, right? When it's all chaotic, you have to be the one to pull yourself together and get the mission done. And when you're out sailing, there's no reset button. If you're in the middle of the ocean, there's a storm, you can't just call in a helicopter and go home. I mean, you can sometimes, but that's not, you don't do that. You need to get the boat home with your comrades, with your teammates.
Yeah, nobody likes
So-
pulling the EPIRB button. Nobody wants that.
Yeah.
You don't. It's
Yeah,
bad.
as much as you may want to.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I could give you a great example. We did a Martha's Vineyard race. So a race from Western Long Island out to Martha's Vineyard, which is like a 2-day race. We were sailing back on a 55-foot boat with 10 veterans on board, and coming back, we were being followed by a hurricane, or I forget which hurricane, but like a storm was following us back, and we were racing other boats, but also racing this storm coming to us. And it was just such a great moment because everyone on board, it was almost like we were in our element, not to use that word, but we were there together in the moment, just racing to get home. And it's, again, it mimics what people in the military have. And when they get out of the military, they kind of miss it, like you come home alone, you're not with your unit anymore. You don't have a commanding officer to tell you what to do. Being on a sailboat mimics what military members are used to. And that's why sailing is so unique and so beautiful, because it is a nature sport. It's a team sport. But if you really want it to be, it's also fun to just have like sunset sails and go out for a few hours,
Yeah.
And we offer all of that. That's what we try and do at SailAhead, is give people this opportunity to have what they're missing, and kind of get them back on their feet.
Yeah. And, I think it's that almost controlled chaos. You're trying to control something that you're not really supposed to be able to control. You're not supposed to be able to control nature and use it to your own benefit. And sailing is that. When I see it on TV, something like that, it's kind of mesmerizing, because like you said, there is a difference between that and power boating. There is. You're using machine, which we designed and we created and we engineered. Sailing, you are very reliant on Mother Nature for everything, and you have to try to control what Mother Nature gives you to get to your end result, whether that's a race or, like you said, just having some wine in the bay because you feel like taking your girl out, which if you don't do it right, you're going to have a horrible date. That's just going to go poorly. So I think it does feed really well into kind of the veteran mindset that we thrive under pressure. We work well as teams, and we like a little chaos in our lives. We really do.
Yeah, and sailing is also a humbling experience, because we are out there at the mercy of Mother Nature to a certain extent, and we need to, it's almost like a forced team effort. If you don't work together, you're not getting home, kind of thing. And we like to say that it's also like a forced group therapy almost, because you have people out there with similar backgrounds as you. You have to communicate to operate the boat and race competitively. And it's just, everyone seems to have a good time. Again, like everyone is like in their element. And power boats are great too, don't get me wrong, but there's on sailboats, for example, there's no throttle. Like you can't just power through a storm or power through hard times. You gotta like go at the pace of everyone's sort of energy. So
yeah, well, that's that finding zero that I was talking about at the top of the show, whether it's surfing or sailing or any of these kind of ocean sports where you're actually relying on the ocean more than technology. You have to find that balance. It's a give and take with what is in front of you. You can't just say, hey, I want to go faster right now.
Yeah,
It don't work that way. If you're surfing, you can't just say, yeah, I want to turn right now. You have to listen to what the wave is doing, and you have to, there's like you said, a feedback loop. It's that, give and take that you have with the ocean. I think that's why so many people love it. I really do.
We really like to think of it as a metaphor for life as well, because there's so much you don't control around you. The current, the direction of the wind, the height of the waves. But within that context, there's so much you can control. You can't, like my sister says, you can't change the direction of the wind, but you can adjust the orientation of your sails.
Right.
And I think, what was it, Eisenhower, that said, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. You might have a plan, but then if the wind direction changes, you need to act on the spot. And again, it's this idea of teamwork. You need to work together or you're not getting home. And in life, you need to have a social network to support you, to help you be successful, and all these other things. So we like to think of it as a kind of I guess, an implicit reminder of, for some veterans who are really going through tough times, that they can feel the love, and they can sort of be like, yeah, you know what? If in a situation where I'm only using wind, basically you have no control over the elements, only what you're able to do. Maybe they could take this back to their lives and apply it to whatever situation they're in.
Right. And I didn't think of it like that. I'll be honest with you. Like, and listen, I'm quick to judge on things. So I'll say that before, I even say my next statement. But when I first saw your organization, I'm like, that's cool. They're taking guys sailing. It must be fun.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't think about the benefits that you can actually get from some of these different activities that we just take kind of for granted. Like you said, it is a metaphor for life. And if you use it that way, now it has so much more therapeutic action for your body.
Yeah, it can be empowering. You're conquering the elements,
Mm-hmm.
Building a team. But then, like you said, we also have those instances where we just have like a wine or White Claws on the bay, because sometimes that's what you need. It all depends on where you are and in that moment of your life and what you need.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why, again, we like sailing so much, is because there's such a broad array of, like, from super intense races to very chill sunset outings. It can really be the right medicine for any ailment, in our opinion.
Yeah. I could see it. I definitely can see how people could really gravitate towards this activity and wanting to learn it. Because like you said, it's a challenge. So if you're like me or a lot of people, and I'm sure you guys are the same way, you put a challenge in front of me. Part of it is just, I want to prove to myself that I could do it. Because it's something different. It's something new.
Yeah.
So that's very cool. Now I have to ask, your brothers, you're 2 years apart. I have a brother. He's 3 years older than me. I don't think that my brother and I could ever work together. We are, it's not even that we're different, because you two are very different, but it just wouldn't work. We don't have that, I don't know. The relationship is different. It's much more of a mentor-mentee type situation. So I don't think it would work in a business or a nonprofit. How did you guys kind of navigate that, especially when you were younger, to work together to do all of this?
Kilian?
See?
Well, Sean, you want to talk?
We definitely had our fair share of conflicts.
I'm sure.
Kilian was always the better sailor. Kilian always had more schooling than me.
See that?
So Kilian was always the better sailor, but we found ways, after all of the conflicts, to divvy up responsibilities and work in ways that best suited us. So, for example, I deal more with the veteran side of things. Like when it comes to an event and we need to fill up the boats with veterans, I deal with that. Kilian deals with the boating side, getting enough sailors with their boats to volunteer and organizing it in a way that, come the day of the event, we just shuffle the veterans onto the boat, and then they go in in the right order to the boats and all that. We still argue.
No, but I think, like, the big picture here was just that Sean and I had this shared passion for the military and veterans and sailing. And then, like anything, we were a team. Yeah, we're a team with a shared passion and goal. And we knew that we each had our strengths and weaknesses, and we're very different people. And we kind of just divvied it up and and built SailAhead around what we could and couldn't do. So I think off the bat we get along, which is also a great start. But we understand realistically that where I have a forte on certain things, Sean is better at others, and we're able to always go back to what the mission is, and it's the mission here with SailAhead is bigger than us, and we put our egos aside, or Sean puts his ego aside, and and we push forward.
Well, and it kind of plays into, like I said, you guys are you're individuals, but you have to work together, and you have to navigate that family kind of mindset, little brother, big brother type thing. We all deal with that. But just in, like, you could see, probably drawing from your, own kind of worlds. One of you is a mathematics, physics major, or was graduated. The other one is into history and, more probably on the political side, that type of stuff. So you're talking like liberal arts versus STEM, and you probably draw a lot of that in to how you run the nonprofit.
Yeah, and also with that background in mind, I have a different way of analyzing situations and drawing conclusions because of I think because of my math and physics background, where Sean is totally different. But we complement each other because it's great feedback, and we go back and forth all the time.
Yeah. And listen, that's what you have to do. You have to draw on your own life experiences and what you're passionate about, and also what you're good at, and then feed that into what you guys are building. It's very cool. It's very cool. And I have to ask, so you partner up with all of these different organizations. Okay, you're kind of expanding, and you have expanded since the time when you first started it. How do you make your contacts with, like, the yacht clubs? Because my family's a member of a yacht club. You don't just walk into a yacht club a lot of times and get a great response. Some you do, some you don't. It's like any other club, but they are club atmospheres, and non-members walking in, there can be a little bit of a roadblock there. Does the idea that it's a sailing nonprofit help you kind of get your foot in the door, and then you can talk to them?
Well, we have been rejected.
I'm sure.
But I guess, it's just part of it is luck and network. If you know someone, that's a foot in the door. But then, as you show the world that you can be successful in what you're doing, then all of a sudden everyone sort of wants to join in, or they're more receptive to what you have to say. Mm-hmm. But, a very funny story is that in 2015, when we approached the first yacht club at the Centerport Yacht Club, who's one of our most important partners to this day, we, I was in 2015, I was 15, I guess, and Kilian was 17. And, imagine pitching to the board a 15 and 17-year-old saying, hey, guys, we have a great idea. We're going to use your sailors, your boats. We'll bring veterans, and we'll do a speech, a nice ceremony, like Marine Color Guard. And then we'll go sailing, again, on your boats. And then when we come back, hey, why don't you guys host like a barbecue?
Yeah. Why don't you guys feed everybody?
Yeah. And to our surprise, I don't know what we were expecting. I guess we were just kids. So we're like, yeah, this sounds like a great idea. But they said yes. So and that's to their credit, because, why the heck would you trust a 15 and 17-year-old that just walked in your door because they knew, it's a lot of credit needs to be placed onto our partners that trust in us and that share our vision to also help veterans. I think it's true that a lot of people in the civilian world want to help. Some people aren't aware of the problem, some people are, but whenever they're made aware of an issue like veteran suicide, they really want to do something, but they don't always have the opportunity to do it. So if you give them kind of an easy way to help, or if you take care of the work, and all they have to do is show up and sail, for example, then they're totally up for it. And so we're lucky in that sense. We don't really have to fight very hard to find partners like that.
Yeah. Now, this raising of awareness and getting people to help you, you guys came up with this idea of the mates. All right.
Yes.
Which I think is really cool. And it's very unique to your organization, how you guys have kind of figured this all out, and you use it to raise that awareness of veteran suicide, the men and women that we lose to the battle at home. And you carry it with you everywhere. So please tell us a little bit about the mates. I see you have the name tapes there.
Kilian, do you want to talk about them?
Yeah, so our mates are 219 name tags of veterans and active duty military members who commit suicide due to PTSD, depression, or otherwise inability to just, readapt to civilian life. And we carry them with us together on a rope, and they're all bunched up together. And we, like you said, take them literally everywhere we go, to sailing events, to sometimes we just get called out into the city and do a speech or do a talk about SailAhead and the veteran suicide epidemic. The reason why 219 is because, when we first started, there was that VA statistic that said that at least 22 veterans commit suicide daily, each day. So after 10 days, that's 220. And the reason why we say 219 is because that one remainder is the one that we're trying to save.
Right.
At the end of the day, we're trying to prevent this, the suicides from happening. So that's why 219 is our banner as well. We have a flag. It's called 219, with 219 on it, and that is our flag to represent the mates. What we do with the mates as well is we dedicate a whole page on our website where family members of our mates can post a biography, share their story of their loved one. And it's also a way to create a community of families who share similar hardships. And the thing in the US is that even though we're a country at war, or we're at war, it's really just the military and their family members who are at war. We're not, as a country, we don't feel like we're at war, because it's like, in World War II, there were victory gardens. The government was advocating to have the people ration.
Mm-hmm.
And we just don't feel that anymore. It's really just the 1%, 1% of the population.
Yeah, it's the people at war and their families who know we're at war.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it really doesn't affect anybody else.
Yeah, you're not talking about the Wars Act. You're not talking about, forcing people to go into factories and build, even though they're not in the military. They're building munitions and stuff like that. I mean, that was reality in World War II. And let's be honest, outside of 9/11, wars aren't fought on U.S. soil.
Exactly.
I mean, they're just not. They're in a faraway place that people don't even understand. They've never been to Afghanistan. They've never been to Iraq. They're never going. It's not even like France and Germany, where it's like, hey, my family was from there. The majority of people have no connection to these places. So it's very hard for them to have now a connection to a war, unless it's, splattered on CNN or Fox or something like that.
And that's, I think, something that's very hard for Gold Star families and for families who've lost loved ones to suicide, because people just simply don't understand. People don't understand why they might have chosen to do that, and oftentimes, So the point is, we want to carry around our mates because, as Kilian said, 219 represents, and I'm holding the name tags here. This is every 10 days worth of casualties in the home front. We don't think of it as a front, but that's a front of the war. And in fact, more people since 9/11, more soldiers and veterans have lost their lives at home than by the hands of the enemy around the world.
Yes.
And so frequently throughout the years, people ask Kilian and I if we were doing this because we intended to join the military. And we consider ourselves we say no, but we consider ourselves to be on the front lines of an invisible war, but a far more insidious war that is claiming more American lives. And so we carry our mates around us because it's so true that the families feel left out, forgotten. And So it's a way to pay homage to them, and we keep in touch with them. One of our mates, the mother said, "My daughter had never gone sailing before. Please send me a picture when you go sailing." So we go out on the boat. I hold out the name tag. I take a picture. I send it to her, and she says, "Wow, that's amazing." For me, or to the naked eye, these are just pieces of cloth with a name on it. But no, they represent human lives.
Mm-hmm.
They each have 10 loved ones. All of a sudden, 219 becomes a very large, quantity of human suffering. And as sad and terrible as it is a reality, and we don't want it to be ignored by people. So by carrying this around, it's very in your face. We encourage people to touch it, to hold it, to go through the names, because this is reality, and we can't forget it. It's still going on.
And each we try, what we do every year at our events is we also fly in the family members of the mates. So we have mates that span from Idaho, Colorado, Louisiana, Florida, and we will fly in the family members free to them to attend the SailAhead event so that they can see what we do and how we spread their loved ones' messages around New York and the country.
Yeah, and they have an opportunity to speak. We give them, before we go sailing, we have everyone listen to the story of their loved one, because that is one of our missions, is to honor and remember our mates. It's not just to go sailing. It's not just to spread awareness.
Yeah. And I like the idea of the 219 instead of the 220. It's an attainable goal to save one person.
Yeah.
It is a almost insurmountable idea to say, we're going to just end veteran suicide like that. That is the desire. That's the dream, right? But saving one person is very possible. You can do that. You can make a phone call and save one person. You can stop somebody from making a very bad decision, just one-on-one contact, getting them out of their element, doing something, taking them sailing. So I like that you kind of highlight that idea of just get one, because then one becomes two becomes three, and that's how you actually save people's lives.
Yeah.
And from SailAhead's perspective, since we've started, we've brought over 4,000 veterans to the water. And that's an impressive number, I'll admit, but that's really not the number we care about. That's not our goal. The figure we really care about is how many lives we've saved because of our sailing opportunities and programs. And that's just a number we don't know, and I don't know if we'll ever know. But we do know that we have saved lives before because of SailAhead and because of what we're doing. But again, that's the goal. It's really not. We don't want to take every veteran sailing. We want to help those who need it, whether they're directly related to military or indirectly.
Yeah. And again, listen, it'd be great to take everybody sailing. That's fun.
Yeah.
Like you said, it'd be great to have a giant racing team and everybody could go out and do stuff. But at the end of the day, the goal is to prevent just that 220th person from doing something that they can't undo, because you can't take it back. And I really do. I think what you guys are doing is amazing. Like I said, I love the fact that it's water related. It's something that I'm passionate about. And it's, I think, something that if you're from Long Island, let's be honest, we grew up on an island, and it's all around us. Boating is all around us. Water activities are all around us. So I think it's easy to get somebody to do it. Say, hey, listen, you want to just come out on the water? It's right down the road, Oyster Bay. Anywhere on the island, you get there in about an hour, for the most part, unless you're really out there. So I think it's something that really can work in the local community, which is awesome.
Yeah. And Jason, that was one thing too, is that Sean and I, we're just two people in our family. We can't take everyone out sailing.
No.
But what we do see is, unfortunately, around Long Island, there are a lot of boats just sitting there, on docks or moorings. There are a lot. So part of what we do at the events too is the whole purpose is to like connect sailors with local veterans, and if we can connect them during a SailAhead event, hopefully after the event unrelated to SailAhead, they continue to go sailing, and we're like the brokers between people who need help and sailors.
Yeah. And you are 100% right about boats that go nowhere. Every yacht club I've ever been in and every marina that I've ever been in, we would walk through and be like, that boat hasn't moved in 3 weeks. That boat hasn't moved in a month. That guy lives in Connecticut. He hasn't even been down on the boat. I don't even know where he's from. He's not even here. I used to yell at my father, got to use this boat. Sitting is the worst thing for a boat. I'm sure it's the same for sailboats, but for power boats,
yeah,
you might as well throw it in the trash because you're going to be paying out the nose if you just let a boat sit. The worst thing you can do. So you guys have these events, which gets people out there, gets these boats going. Excuse me. But you also have a bunch of other stuff. So you guys do races here in New York and in Washington, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So you have go ahead.
Yeah, we have a racing team that's primarily that's here, but we also have a racing team of veterans in Washington. And the reason why we went to Washington originally is because one of our mates, his name is Ryan James Day, he was a ranger, and he was stationed in the base in Tacoma because he's from the 2nd Ranger Battalion. And so while we were there, we met some people who said, we had an event over there, and we met some people who are racers, and they said they really like what we're doing, and they wanted to champion our cause in racing over there. So we sent them a bunch of shirts, and then they were racing and they were spreading awareness and taking veteran sailing over there. And our racing team here in New York is captained by a Green Beret, Fran Rachopi, who was a veteran of 13 years. We basically borrow race boats for the time being, but one of our goals is to have a race boat donated to us and to fundraise enough to be able to maintain it, because interestingly enough, it's not terribly difficult to get boats donated to us, which surprised me at first. The problem is that boats are very expensive, especially if you want to be, if we want a special forces racing team. These people deal with the most high-tech pieces of equipment that the world has to offer. We want to give them a competitive edge if we create a race team out of this community. So unfortunately, that costs a lot of money. Kevlar or carbon sails are hard to, they're very expensive. So our goal is to fundraise so that we can have this dedicated racing team on a SailAhead boat and actually win races.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest. If you are going to enlist special forces or operators or anybody that are, kind of the high speed group from the military, they're not used to failing,
right?
Especially in the task at hand. You know what I mean? So they're going to want to win every single time. They're not going to do well with not competing at a very high level because that's what they're used to.
Exactly.
And just veterans in general are very competitive. I mean, you see 2 base squadrons in the Air Force have a bowling team and a softball team. You think we were fighting a war right there. I mean, you don't want to mess around with that stuff. Everybody's very competitive. They want to be the best. They want to be the winner. So if you're going to do it, like you said, it costs money, and boating is ridiculously expensive, especially at that level. But that's cool. So you have the race team. People can get involved in that. Like I said, you're in Washington and in New York. You guys have raced all over the world. You've been out towards France. You've been kind of everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, so definitely up and down the New England coast, in Tacoma, Washington, and then parts of France. Yes, we've sailed out there, but yeah, that's pretty much it so far.
And
We'd like to expand. Like we want to do. I mean, honestly, within a 10-year goal, and this is totally possible, to have an all veteran group sailing team to do the Volvo Ocean Race,
Okay.
which is a race that goes around the world. It's a very intense race. You have stages, so like you start in, let's say, like France or the UK. You go to, let's say, Brazil, then Cape Town, New Zealand, around South America, and back to the UK. It's a very intense race, but it's perfect for special operations, special forces, and veterans who are competitive and intense. And honestly, we want to get a SailAhead boat in that race within the next 10 years.
Yeah, and like you said, it's very doable. It's a doable. That's something that can happen. It's all about the fundraising. You know, like you said, the donations of a boat is just the beginning. It's about the fundraising that makes that happen, that makes that team come together and gives them the best edge. Yeah. So but that's a great goal. That's very cool. So besides the racing, you guys also have safety teams, correct? That guys can get involved, guys and girls can get involved with. And basically they go out on the water and provide basically assistance during a lot of these races and stuff. There'd be like the safety boat that's out there.
Yeah, so we have some people who are interested, some veterans who are interested. We get them CPR certified, and or we have combat medics that come on board, and we have a rib, which is a rigid inflatable boat. So it's got the inflatable pontoons, sides. So during our events, but also during regattas in our area, where we have this boat, our rib, with a safety team, and usually Kilian or I are driving. Someone who's very experienced at driving is driving, and we're just there just in case someone gets heat exhaustion or gets a cut. There's always a possibility for an injury on a boat. It's not always, especially when you're racing, because you just want to win, like you said, and it's intense. So we have our medic team available, ready. They're very vigilant, and in the case that someone's injured, they're in charge of the first aid, and most importantly, transporting them to an ambulance that's waiting on shore, because on a boat there's only so much you can do. So they're sort of the first response. They evacuate the people on a boat, from the boat to land.
Very cool. Now, anybody, you said that you train them for the CPR, AED, all that kind of stuff, first responder, kind of like almost like your standard Red Cross type class. But so basically anybody could really volunteer for that, to be a part and help out.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's a lot of fun. And you get to spend the day out on the water.
Right.
Because if nobody gets hurt and nothing bad happens, you just got to watch a really cool race and hang out on the water.
Yeah,
exactly.
The price of a few hour class to learn CPR, which is a net plus anyway.
Yeah, I'm a proponent that everybody should take that CPR class, especially if you have kids in the house, anything like that. I think everybody should do that, but that's just me. So you have that team. They go out on the rib. They have a good time. You guys get to drive a power boat, which I'm sure you love. Gets you behind, a little bit of speed every once in a while.
Yeah. It's nice to go faster than 5 miles per hour sometimes.
Every once in a while, just to dip your beak a little bit. That's all. And then you also, which is really cool, and I love that you guys are doing this, which is maritime education. So you're talking about the history of boating, which, if you're from this area, the New England area, the Long Island area, it is just part of the culture. Our entire history is based around what we had available here, which was the water, whether it was fishing, shipping, military. It was all right here. There was a reason that this became such a populated area, from us all the way to Boston. This was ripe for what we needed to start this country. So it's really cool that you guys are doing that. Can you tell me a little bit about that kind of maritime education portion?
Yes. Sure. So we work very closely with the Long Island Maritime Museum, which they're based out on the South Shore. And they also have an over 120-year-old oyster sloop. So Long Island's history is very much ingrained in the oysters, because there used to be so many oysters around Long Island. And so they have over 120-year-old oyster sloop that we work with to take veterans sailing on, so that they get a sense of the local history of Long Island and all that. The museum also does tours on like shipwrecks around the Long Island, wartime history on the ocean, and it just gives a different perspective of, we sail in the 21st century on the water, but it's nice to know where all this comes from and get a perspective of, like also like navigation. Nowadays it's so easy. Google Maps, you go anywhere.
Yep. You got a Garmin
But
GPS, you just rock and roll,
Yeah.
you plug in, your plots, you hit your waypoints. That's all it is.
it's so easy nowadays. You literally have, watches.
Yeah,
that
I mean, it's
do
crazy.
it for you. So it's again just different perspective, and learning, like, how to use the sextant, for example, and a lot. I mean, everyone in the military knows how to use a compass and read a map. So it's very fascinating to know what it was like over 100 years ago or more.
Yeah.
The,
You get spoiled with things like radar and things like that, especially in deep fog and, different storms and stuff. Trust me, there's plenty of people that think they know how to use radar and they have no idea. I've seen it a bunch of times. I'm like, you probably should just not use that. You're going to get yourself in more trouble. But if you know how to use it properly, it is an amazing tool that saves boats from crashing into a number of different things.
Well, that's another thing too, is on sailboats, we do have GPS and all that, electronics, but you always need to have paper charts.
Yes.
Like, because if the electronics fail, you're screwed. You need something that you can rely on all the time. So that's why we always keep paper charts on the boats. And going to this museum, for example, learning about maritime history gives you some perspective, like, I mean, to this day still, for example, it sounds a bit old, but when it's foggy, you need a bell. Like, you need to go back to basics. You need a bell to be able to tell the boats where you are. And it goes back to, and it's humbling, honestly, learning that over 100 years ago, people would get lost and be off their mark by hundreds of miles is a crazy concept, and so teaching veterans, especially because in the military, we're so ingrained in culture and history and tradition. We find that a lot of people, and Sean and I included, just love it,
Yeah, it's great to learn about it, especially if you're a local guy and you're learning about kind of where you came from, and maybe you didn't know anything about that. You didn't know that, oysters were a big reason why Long Island thrived, over 100 years ago. It's cool to know. It's cool to find out.
Yeah, I like to say that, so the oyster sloop that Kilian mentioned, that's over 120 years old, is named the Priscilla, and it was declared by Congress to be a National Historic Landmark. So I like to joke with the veterans that it's the only landmark, to my knowledge, that you can actually drive.
That's very cool. That's very cool. And I'm sure one of the veterans just tried to drive it out into nowhere. Don't let any of the veterans drive. We're a disaster waiting to happen. It's bad for business. But no, it is. It's so cool. And then you talk about the history of navigation and the history of how to actually operate a boat. When you have those basics and you understand why you do certain things, you're going to be a better boat operator anyway. So it's great to learn from that, because like you said, electronics fail, radar fails, depth finders fail. I know for sailing, you guys draw a lot more water than comparable power boats a lot of times. So having that paper chart and knowing when you're in, say, the Peconic Bay, that there's a peninsula that comes out, and if you go to the left of that buoy, if you're inland of that buoy, you only have 2 feet of water. You need to know that ahead of time. You don't want to find that out from a depth finder as you're going over it.
Exactly, and that has happened. So
it happens all the time. I've rescued many a boat in the Peconic Bay that just ran ashore and ran into peninsulas, hit rocks, all that kind of fun stuff, and a bunch of people that forgot to put the plug in their boat too. But we won't talk about that. That's operator error. Happens all the time.
At the museum, they have a map of all the shipwrecks around Long Island. Most of them are on the South Shore because there's like a hidden sandbar off the coast, and there are hundreds and hundreds of those boats. And what's interesting is, no matter what technology you have, if you hit a sandbar, the result will be the same. And for a veteran who's on a 130-year-old boat learning to sail based on that, it's basically the same physics that you have on a boat that's built today that's worth $2 million. That's not a work boat. It's the same physics. So, because you're dealing with the wind and harnessing the wind, it's an interesting way to sort of transcend your moment now, the period today. I mean, this is me speaking as a history major, and to go back and be and sort of connect with everyone that came before you.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going back to a technology that has been used for world travel since man kind of figured out how to invade another country. I mean, let's be honest, you're going back to the Vikings, you're going back to the Greeks, you're every military that we learn about in school had a navy, for the most part, that we really talk about and that we study. Naval tactics. It's a huge, you can major in naval tactics. I mean, you can just study that alone. So it's really cool when you kind of go back and learn, and now you're doing the same thing, but you're doing it for recreational purposes. It's awesome.
And part of the education too is it is historical, and it's all about what we mentioned, but there's also what's called a basic keelboat certification.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a program where it's offered by a few sailing schools on Long Island, and we partner with them to have we partnered with them before the pandemic to have veterans go through this program. And at the end of like a 10-week training process, they have a basic keelboat certification, which basically means that they can operate a keelboat in fair weather conditions in the bay. So they're not incredibly knowledgeable, but they have great concepts in order to, expand on their sailing knowledge.
So it's kind of similar to the boater safety course that you see a lot of the power squadrons and stuff do.
And we have done boater safety courses as well, and like offshore safety courses, where you jump in the life raft, in the pool at the Maritime, SUNY Maritime. Shoot floaters. It's a lot of
Hope
fun.
the helicopter takes off on time and comes and gets you. That whole thing. Very cool. Yeah. You don't want to be in that situation, but it is cool to know that technology I will keep, radar, GPS, you want to work around that. Yeah. That helicopter, knowing that when you're 30 miles offshore and that helicopter will just take off if anything bad happens, that's a pretty good feeling.
Yeah.
Definitely worth it.
Yeah.
That and CETO. Knowing that you have CETO, it's the best. Yeah. I think when I was working in the boatyard, it was $100 for the yearly membership. And I used to tell anybody that would buy a boat, I was like, especially a power boat, it's the best $100 you're going to spend. It's better than any insurance that you can get for your boat, because bad things happen when you're on the water, especially if it's a used boat, older boats, they're going to break down. It's going to happen. And knowing you can just call CETO and they come out and get you, and you're not getting hit with a $900 bill, it's great. Big proponent.
We're on the same page, I think.
Yeah. I'm all about protecting yourself. You know what I mean? Especially financially too. Listen, guys, I love everything that you guys have been doing. Again, I'm a huge fan of just the idea, and like I said, I think there's a little bit of nostalgia for me just coming from Long Island and loving the water like I do, that it's just another avenue to kind of take advantage of that. But I want more people to take advantage of it. So there's a couple things that I want you to definitely highlight. One, how do people get involved? How can a veteran sign up to go sailing? How can people volunteer? That type of stuff.
So, from the veteran sides, for sure, contact us either by social media or send us an email at info@sailahead.org. Let us know where you are, because, also a lot of some veterans will contact us, but they're in Maryland, and we have a partner out there in Maryland, in Annapolis, who sails. They're called Valhalla Sailing. Also down in Miami or in Florida, we have a partner that sails out here, or in Tacoma. So first thing would be to reach out, of course, reach out to us. Let us know where you're based, what you want to do, and we'll make it work so that we get you sailing, as a veteran. In terms of if you're a civilian, let's say, and you want to get involved somehow, help the veterans, I mean, there's so many ways you can help us. It'll come down to what you can offer, like if you're a skipper, if you know how to sail, and even if you know how to sail but don't have a boat, email us, let us know, contact us. Information's on our website. and let us know what you can or can't do. And we always need skippers. Like Sean said, we have no problems getting boats. It's really finding the people who can sail the boats.
Yep.
And then obviously fundraising and money is something we always need. Sailing is very expensive, and we have a lot of ambitious goals that we would like to conquer. Sean, anything else you think that I missed?
Yeah, no, all those things. The safety team. If you have something that you can educate, if you're good on a particular topic like navigation or anything, and that you feel like it'd be interesting to teach veterans, let us know what this topic is. But like Kilian said, so now that Kilian's done with school, and I'm graduating this semester, we have large ambitions now. We have, for example, I heard on a previous episode of yours about Warrior Ranch that
Yes.
So I was there for the inauguration, and I was very inspired by what they do. So Kilian and I have this kind of dream, no timeline yet, but to sort of have a facility the way they do, and mix it with a sailing school we graduated from in Oyster Bay called Oak Cliff Sailing Center. And basically, where at-risk veterans, no matter where they are in the country, if something is set off in the alarm system of a buddy of theirs, like something's not right, we can just buy them a plane ticket. They can come to our facility, where there's a kind of barracks, and they can sleep with fellow veterans. And there's like a 2-week to a month-long sailing training program. And at the end of that program, they can start racing. So we would really, I guess right now we just really need funds, because we would love to open a sailing school basically for veterans, so that we can have a sailing team, but multiple boats racing all the time.
Yeah, and also another.
Go ahead.
Veterans to take other veterans sailing, because like Kilian said, we can't take everyone sailing, but we don't necessarily want to. If veterans can take veterans sailing, all the better. We can't really connect with someone because we have a different experience, whereas two veterans, who went to the same base abroad, what have you, they can connect much better.
And I was just going to say, Jason, another thing people can do is, if they, maybe they don't want to do anything with sailing, they want to do, but they love SailAhead and the message that we have. Sean and I have gone out into the city a few times just to share the story, do a presentation in front of people, and let people hear who our mates are and what happens, and that's enough too for us, raising awareness. So whether you help us monetarily by volunteering, or sharing this message and letting people know about the 22 a day, that's all. I mean, that's all the help we could ask for.
Yeah, and that's really what it's all about. It is all about, like you said, that 220th person. I go back to that again, because I think that's what's so important, to make sure that we reach the person that we can. And that's through awareness, that's through the programs, that's through everything that you guys are trying to do. So it is not just one aspect. So if you're looking to help, listen, it's December. This is the giving season. It is. There's a reason that they created Giving Tuesday, which just passed. This is the time when people generally open their hearts and I hate to say it like this, but open their wallets and try to help out, their local nonprofits and things like that. If these gentlemen have struck a chord with you, please don't think that you can't help. Even if, you don't have the money, you want to give your time, or like Kilian said, you just want to help spread the word. You have a social media following, you can share, whatever the case may be. All of those things will get these guys to their goal of helping that 220th person. So please take advantage of that.
Share this podcast. There's a lot of great stuff here with Bulletproof Veteran, right? It's not just us.
Yeah.
Any help?
Yeah, no, definitely. We want to help as much as possible, Where's like the website, that type of stuff?
Yeah, so our website is www.sailahead.org.
Okay.
We have a Facebook page and an Instagram. Facebook is Facebook.com/SailAhead. And our Instagram is SailAhead_219, I believe.
Mhm.
It's just, yeah, it's Twitter, Instagram is SailAhead219 for
Okay.
SailAhead219. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. People, get out there, get this information. Head over to the website. You can see the team. You can see all the veterans that are kind of part of the team and that are advisors and help out and stuff. You can read a little bit about them. You got Army Rangers. You got some Air Force guys on there, which I love to see. You have Special Forces. It's very cool, the team that you guys have built in such a short period of time. You can read a little bit about Kilian and Sean, and their backgrounds and why they do what they do. As a kind of a companion to what they've told you today. And again, if you can donate, whether it's your time, money, or your voice, whatever you guys can do. We want to help out this organization, so please do it. Kilian, Sean, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a blast talking to you guys. I've had a lot of fun. Can't wait to see you out on the water. We'll have a lot of fun, and we can maybe meet up and, maybe you could convert me into a blowboater instead of, always. I always smell like gasoline. It's not good anyway. I probably should. The fumes are horrible.
Try our best, Jason.
I appreciate it. Thank you. But for Bulletproof Veteran Podcast, thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Jason.
Thank
Thank you.